Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons & Dragons, and we're going to talk about Vecna, and we're going to talk about Phylacteries and the problem of Phylacteries. All right, so something really interesting happened. So Ray Winninger poked his head out, like Puxatawny Phil. It was like, "Hey, I'm Ray Winninger. Here I am." Right. And by the way, I think Mike Whirls, you saw him a lot more frequently than you see Ray Winninger. Ray Winninger don't really poke his head out much, right? But this Vecna thing, this is big. And he poked his heck out. He's like, "Hey, I don't know, I forget what his stupid title is. He's the design lead, okay?" And basically, Ray Winninger he's like, hey, he came out and he said, "Hey, we just released this Vecna stat block, and we released Vecna, right? Now, what did we get? We got lore and we got stat block. That's a big deal. It's everything you need to run, and it was free and it was immediate. Like, it was really fantastic. So, but something happened. It was really interesting. So about a year ago, and it is Wizards of the Coast just utterly defeating every competitor. And of course, I give my fur up, right? Because a lot of people, there's all this squawk on Twitter. People just squawk absolutely nonstop on Twitter, right? And what they say is like, and they all bemoan. They're like, "Oh, my trash game doesn't beat Dungeons and Dragons," but it's not because my game isn't better. It's because Dungeons and Dragons is famous, right? And if they weren't famous, nothing would work out for them, and my game would be on top, right? But the reality is that's not true. Like, first of all, yes, a lot of people come to Dungeons and Dragons because it's famous. It is world famous. It's the most famous tabletop role playing game in the world. But being famous don't keep anybody, right? Like, if they come to the game and the game sucks, they're not going to play it anymore, right? And the reality is that's not the case. There are people playing again and again and again in lots of different campaigns. There's lots of new players, and there are people doing more and more different things with Dungeons & Dragons all the time, because when they come to Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, they actually they really enjoy it. They very much enjoy Dungeons & Dragons. So yes, fame brings them to the game, but it doesn't keep them. Quality keeps them. Dungeons & Dragons 5th is quality. And Dungeons & Dragons, everything's better. The art better, the writing is better, and also the marketing and just the way they handle problems is way better. Look at this, Paizo, okay? So Paizo, a year ago, comes out and they said, "Guess what, everybody? We're no longer going to use the word phylactery," right? Now, what is a phylactery? Phylacteries are small boxes, and generally Orthodox Jews take scripture. They'll take verses of scripture, they'll roll it up, and they'll put it into this little box, and then they'll tie it to their hat or to their hair or to their coat, right? And the reason they do this is the Bible said, keep the scriptures on you. And the idea is it's a protection, right? And so basically, phylactery's been used literally since at least the beginning of Dungeons and Dragons to say, hey, these are wards against death, right? And if you go into older Dungeons and Dragons, they'll say liches use phylacteries to put shreds of their soul into these phylacteries, and in order to kill them, you have to destroy every phylactery, and then you can kill the lich, right? Now, the problem with this is, like, it would be like if you said, "Hey, evil demons use crucifixes to, or copies of the Quran." You're like, "Hey, that's a real religion. That, like, maybe you shouldn't be attaching that to a fantasy monster, right? Like, that's an actual religious artifact, right? Like, that's not appropriate to say." And so a lot of people are like, "This is pretty anti-Semitic," right? And looking at it, I definitely agree. I think phylactery is anti-Semitic, right? So basically, Paizo comes out a year ago and they go, "We're going to stop using phylacteries," right? And we're not going to put it in any of our games going forward. Now, you guys all clap for us because we did our woke thing for the day, right? And so that's one way of handling it. And the story was like, well, the story really became, why were we using phylacteries for so long anyway? Well, like, this is pretty terrible. Like, and the story didn't come off well, in my opinion, for Paizo. Wizards of the Coast had the exact same problem. Magic Gathering right now, I own one of the cards. I own a card that says Phylactery Lich, right? Like, phylactery is still attached. Well, what they did was they redid Vecna, and they removed all his phylacteries. They're like, his hatred is what keeps him alive. And if you kill him, his hatred will manifest him, and he will come back to life 1D100 years later. And they're saying, hey, let's take the anti-Semitism out of Dungeons and Dragons, right? Now, the thing is, they didn't say that. They didn't say, like, we're going to stop using phylacteries. Ray Winninger actually mentioned phylacteries, like he doesn't need phylacteries, right? He said his hatred keeps him alive, right? Ray Winninger said. And so basically they're saying, rather than saying, hey, we're stopping using phylacteries, which just focuses directly on the problem, what they said is, hey, here's Dungeons & Dragons, Wizards of the Coast does it way better. They're like, here's an iconic Dungeons & Dragons monster. He uses phylacteries in the past when we were still prejudiced. Now we're not, right? Like, and you get your brand new Vecna, and guess what? We're not using phylacteries anymore. So the story is Vecna, not them stopping using phylacteries. Masterful, way better, process, and that's why Wizards of the Coast makes $875 million a year, and Paizo makes 25, because they outclass them at every single turn. D&D 5e is the best in the world. It is objectively so. That's my opinion. I'd love to hear your thoughts. How do you think? Who do you think handled it better, Paizo or Wizards of the Coast? I'd love to hear your take. Let me know in the comments below. Please consider subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.